Creativity in the Age of COVID with Dr. Judi Blume and Richard Skipper. It's the only program in which therapy and entertainment come together to show everyone not only how to cope in the age of COVID, but how to be creatively productive through it all. And now, Dr. Judi Blume and Richard Skipper.
Happy November, everyone, and welcome to Creativity in the Age of COVID with Richard Skipper and Dr. Judi Blume. And hello, it's good to see you. First of all, it's amazing that you're even here today.
Yes.
Because you have moved from California to Florida. Mm-hmm. And before we get into the details of today's shows, I want to ask you, what is it like moving from coast to coast in the midst of a pandemic?
Yes, it's you know how it's normally really nerve-wracking to do that? Triple it.
So what kind of protocols did you have to go through as far as a moving company and all of those things?
Yeah, the moving company was terrific in terms of everybody wore masks. All the at both sides, all the guys wore masks, loading and unloading, and I stayed away as much as I could physically as well. Was
that an easy thing to do?
Pardon?
Was it an easy thing to do?
Not really, but you make it work. And, dealing with airports, is not pleasant these days, but it's okay. You get through it. And, I think it's just a question of mindset and just knowing that you're doing something you're choosing to do, and therefore you're going to make it happen and get through this as quickly and as painlessly as possible. And now the hard part comes, which is unpacking. So,
how long have you been in your the new residence?
A week.
Wow. And your moving van arrived when?
Today, a couple hours ago.
Wow. Well, a couple of things that I want to say to everyone out there. First of all, today marks 238 days since the theater shut down here in New York. And of course, that triple effect went across the country like a tidal wave. Theaters, concerts, performing arts centers, seasons have been canceled. Artists are out of work. And it's not just the artists that you see on stage. It's the stage crews, all the many people that are behind the scenes. It's the vendors. It's the restaurants in the theater district. It's all of these places that have been affected so much by this. So Dr. Blume, Dr. Judi Blume, was my guest on my Richard Skipper Celebrate show in August. And it was suggested to us that we come together and do a great show. So this is really the type of show where the arts meet the world of therapy. And hopefully all of you will glean something from today's show. And this is, are you ready for this? This is our 5th show. It's hard to believe. We made it this far. So what we've been doing up to now is we've been doing theme shows that were built around a certain aspect of the theater. And it wasn't always easy to get that cast together and everything. So I thought, with your kind permission as well, that moving forward, we would just bring 3 artistic people together from different areas of the business, and we can talk about what's going on in their world, how they've had to deal with this, and essentially maybe we'll all learn something from each other. Also, those of you who are watching today, if you have a question for either Dr. Blume, myself, or anyone on the panel, send us a private message in the comment section, and we may even bring you on camera if you would like to do so. So I'd like to introduce you, Dr. Blume, to a dear friend of mine, and this is Lori Kaplan. Now, Lori Kaplan has her own business called Bra Tenders, which she will tell you about in a moment. And she is also the Fairy Bra Mother. I guess we're the only show in town that has a Fairy Bra Mother today. Now, Lori and I met as a result of the pandemic. We were Facebook friends, but I've been conducting a workshop for the past few months based on the book, The Artist Way. And Lori is one of the participants in the group. And so I asked if she would be here today, and here she is. Hello, Lori. How are you? Really?
I'm okay. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to tell everyone a little? I'm sorry.
I'm better when I'm with you and with people.
Well, thank you. And I feel the same way. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit about your business and what you do? Because you definitely are involved in the theater community. As I said earlier, today marks 238 days since the theaters shut down. Tell us a little bit about what your calendar looked like on March 11th and how things quickly changed for you.
And Lori, if you could speak up a little bit, I don't know if it's just me, but your sound sounds a little low.
Okay, is that okay?
That's better.
Okay, okay. So Bartenders started as a theatrical supply company. We work with costume designers at the beginning of a production when they say, these are the clothes and we need stuff to go underneath it to create the shape and authenticity of the clothes and to help the character, get in touch with who the character is. And we also do bra fittings for women, many of them who have been to Victoria's Secret and Improv Fit. So I have a theory about that. But we shut down when Broadway went dark because we were getting ready. Normally the spring season on Broadway is pretty busy for us and a bunch of tours. And, all the premieres were coming up. 6 shows were about to open. Mm-hmm. And when Broadway shut down, we shut down too. So we've come back a little bit, but we're operating probably at around 10%. Yeah, people are not coming out to shop. Here and there right now, we're starting to get little drips and drabs from.
And Lori, I want to emphasize that this is your business. This is, you're chief cook and bottle washer with this business.
Yes, I am the head fairy bra mother. I do everything. I created this business. I worked for somebody for 20 years doing something similar, but not quite this. And I'm at this for 43 years. So I'm really good at what I do. Finding those hard to find things that are required by theater, like roll garters or sock garters or things that they used to wear in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, last century and before that. Okay. And, the world, those things are not in fashion. So factories don't make those things anymore. So that was our plan. And, we do special things. We print tights for Wicked and supply all the stuff that goes under the clothes or built on the clothes. And we're hurting, we're living off money that we got from a loan, which I really resent having to go into debt just to stay alive because this thing was, just so improperly handled. And now I am in the process of creating a whole new business. We just opened the first online store. For me, it's about having women come in and having a hands-on uplifting experience, but now we're pivoting to do that virtually, and we're having some good luck with it. And it's better than I expected it to be. And we just launched our first Shopify store, bartenders.com, so people can online. And we got an order from Hawaii for a movie yesterday, and The Godfather of Harlem is filming around the city. So we'll hook up with them over the weekend to give them what they need. And, we're still trying to figure out how to work it. There's not enough work to bring my staff back yet. So they come in when we can put together a full day of fittings or when we get merchandise that needs to be processed. So I give them days here and there when I can for work. And we'll see what happens. I have no idea.
Lori, what you do is so literally hands-on. How are you making that transition to working remotely with women? Because that means that they have to take their own measurements, right? And you have to rely on them doing that correctly, and it's probably not correctly most of the time, I would hazard to guess.
Well, that is my special gift to the world is that I just look at somebody and know what they need. So I the other day that's never had a bra that fit her. She's very amply endowed. We specialize in sizes that you wouldn't necessarily find in a department store. So we sell sizes like 32J and 42K. We know how to fit, and you can't just go anywhere. So most of the time, I'll work with a woman for 5 minutes. She'll give me 2 measurements. That's all I need from her. And then I calculate the size and recommend styles that I think would be appropriate for her. And so far, I'm pretty much spot on. I sent somebody 6 bras. They say, I love 4 of them. They were perfect.
That's always good. Before we bring on our no, I'm sorry. Before we bring on our next guest, I'd like to ask you, with the pandemic, and of course, you've had to completely reinvent yourself. Uh, what have you embraced as a new way of doing business, and what have you resisted with the pandemic in the way you do business?
Well, I resisted going online for the past 20 years. So, you know,
Mm.
all the things that I resisted, the universe gave me a gentle nudge. It's now is the time. Now is the time. Now is the time. I've been wanting to write a book, and I started a book 7 years ago, and now I've kind of gone back to editing the pages because I have the time. You know, instead of sitting here and moaning, figuring out what are next steps that I can take. And you know, I'm 65 years old. I'd like to retire sometime before. But you know, I've worked for 50 years, so I'd like to take it easy and play and have some fun. And at a time when I'd love to be traveling, we can't. So,
Right. Yeah.
life is an interesting adventure.
Certainly.
You made a good pivot in that, you know, you're putting your talents to use. You spent time working on this book you've been meaning to work on. And I think that that's, you know, one of the primary lessons from this time is that we can embrace it. You know, as difficult as it is, we can also embrace it. And maybe walk away with a little more appreciation for our own lives and, you know, how they've been, you know, up until now. And maybe this is a little bit of a taste of what retirement is like for you. And, you know, you can see what works and what doesn't. So it's, you know, it's a sampler.
I decided I'd like to live more simply. You know, it's like,
Well, that's good, especially right now. That makes it a lot easier. Just don't move all the way across the country in the middle of a pandemic.
Exactly.
So our next guest, I mean, Lori also knows Tim Moss, who is also part of our Artist Way group. I've known Tim probably, I'm thinking about 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he is an incredible entertainer. He's a cabaret artist. He's an LGBTQ activist. He never stops. He's always on the go. When the pandemic started, well, let me go back before the pandemic. Tim used to do these videos the first day of each season. He would be out in the rain, in the snow, on the hottest day, doing a dance, in the streets of New York, and sharing that with everyone. And then when the pandemic started, he started doing these daily videos, encouraging people to get up off of their keisters and get up and dance as well. This is Tim Moss.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Richard and Dr. Bloom. I so appreciate your having me on here. And hi, Lori.
So, Tim, I've given a little background on you, but I could just ask with Lori, what are the things that you've embraced the most during this pandemic, and what are the things that you've resisted the most?
I would say what I've embraced the most is our limitations as an entertainer. That was not easy for me, not easy at all. What I've resisted, I would have to think about that, because I always just try to move ahead, and with whatever the cards were dealt, you just got to keep moving. I'll get back to you on the resisting, though.
I want to hear more about your dancing in the streets. I really like that.
Oh, yeah. And it started, I would do my snow dance, I wouldn't do it unless we had like about 2 feet of snow. So whenever we would get a blizzard, that's how it would start, as I would go out in the middle of this blizzard, because I like to feel nature. And I would set the video camera up, and I would just do this little bitty dance. And that was my snow dance. And then I started, every year, people started going, when are you doing the snow dance? When are you doing your snow dance? And so I just enjoy life. I try my best to. And if I can share some of that joy with other people, better yet.
And you can follow Tim on Facebook and tune in to his daily dance workouts. You're not doing them as much as you were, but you're so busy with so many projects right now.
Yeah, I've got a lot of projects that I'm working on, and in actuality, we were talking about like creativity in the time of COVID. Immediately following this, I have to do a video, so I'm doing "Haul Out the Holly," and I've got like stockings, and I've got this whole thing with Christmas lights and everything that I'll be doing immediately following. So, got to keep moving.
Dr. Bloom, do you have any comments before I bring on our next guest?
Yeah, I mean, Tim, it sounds like you're truly embracing your creativity in this time, and that's wonderful. You know, you aren't letting it stop you, and I think that's really exciting.
But I'm telling you, I'm doing all these shows and performances and appearances and stuff right from here, and I'm tired of it. I want an audience. I want to hear laughter. I want to hear clapping. I'm just so starved for that. But again, we have to do what we have to do. So,
do you get an audience when you're performing outside now? If you're like shooting a weather dance of yourself?
Well, I haven't really shot that much outside, and most of actually now I might get out and try it maybe tomorrow. See.
There you have it. Now, our next guest today, I have been a fan of long before I knew him personally. Michael Musto used to write for the Village Voice. That's when I first became familiar with him. I've ended up in his column a couple of times as well. He is constantly, he was a lot on CNN and other talk shows talking about newsworthy people. And he wrote a very interesting article recently, which I hope that he will talk about today. And it's about why the gossip column seems to have been something that has slipped away from us. Michael Musto, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Richard. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Let's applaud for Tim. Tim misses applause, so let's give him some applause right now.
I feel that you like me. You really like me.
We really do.
Now, Michael, I mean, you are a writer, but you are also very much an icon in the New York City social scene. It's true, but with COVID and the pandemic, as I've asked everyone else, what have you been able to embrace as a new way of life for you, and what have you resisted the most?
What I've embraced is something I've always run from, which is quiet time with myself. My whole life I've been sort of OCD or whatever, where you kind of run. You know me, Richard. I'm running from the theater to a nightclub to an after party, running to daytime. I'm writing. I was always afraid to kind of just pull back. And I think I got that from my mother. She was a wonderful homemaker, cooking and cleaning, and didn't want to stop for a second. I now realize I'm okay. I can be alone with my thoughts. I like my thoughts. I like myself. And that's a wonderful step forward. As far as what I'm resisting is the narcissism that you see often on Facebook of people who think COVID is only about them and how it's impacted their lives. It's impacted everyone's lives, and we really have to just buck up and be real butch and get through it.
You bring up a very interesting point here, because I actually got into a debate with someone on Facebook, which is not a good thing to do, and this was someone who was from my home state of South Carolina, who was furious with our governor in New York because she wasn't allowed to come to New York this summer to visit her niece. And so when you talk about the narcissism of how people are affected by this, you bring up a very interesting point.
And you hear so much complaint about Cuomo. How could they open the schools? My daughter's going to get sick. And then the next day, the same person will be complaining that they shut down the Metropolitan Opera House. How are we going to live without that? Look, people, like I say, just be brave, follow the rules. We're a smart state. We voted 3-for-1 for Biden and Harris. Mm-hmm. We are going to get through this, and we have brought the death rate, Richard, as you know, down from like 800 a day to very close to 0 a day. No other state pulled that off.
Now, Michael, most everyone in this room probably knows this, but you were one of the original party kids in New York in the early 80s. I was reading about you, and you were in the paper not only as a writer, but in other people's columns. You were in Cindy Adams and reading about this. And that was such an active part of your life. It was an active part of my life when I was younger as well. You haven't aged at all. But are you still as active in that scene as you were at that time?
Well, first of all, I have to recommend vitamin E oil. It's the best investment you'll ever make. That's my 401k. I look no younger than springtime, but it's all thanks to vitamin E and living a good, clean life. Anyway, I was actually in the 70s at Studio 54, which was the ultimate disco. That was one of my first clubs. So I started at the top. That was extraordinary. And I was pulled in by Steve Rubel, the co-owner, because I was already writing for publications like the Soho Weekly News. I love being part of a scene. I don't want to be a boring Lois Lane, with a notepad. I want to be part of the party and bring something to it. So I always dress up and I act crazy, and I do get mentioned. I get noticed a lot. Mm-hmm. Right now, there's no nightlife. So I have no nightlife to write about. There's no theater for me to write about. Right. Movies are all links. I cover the entire New York Film Festival on a basis of a bunch of links. It's a challenging time. Yeah. But we're all finding other ways, like Tim said, to express ourselves. Zoom has been my savior because I have a movie club that meets twice. We used to meet like every 6 weeks because everybody was busy and traveling. We now meet twice a week, and I share the screen. We watch a movie, and we talk all through it and have a giddy old time. And that's really, things like that help get you through.
Mm-hmm. And Michael, you made a really good point earlier as well about people's narcissism and sense of entitlement. And, we've really seen that across the country, with people who are resistant to following the rules, to wearing masks and maintaining social distance and doing the basics that needs to get done, which means some personal sacrifice. I think that's probably been the most disheartening part of.
Yeah, nobody likes a whiner, and to fashion yourself a civil rights activist because you're just stupid and reckless and want to infect yourself and other people, you're not an activist. You're a moron. If you're on a plane and 2 of the 4 engines died, you get the grab for the oxygen, don't you think? Other than that, you're just plain dumb. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very selfish way of dealing with with reality and with the rest of the world. To come from that kind of a stance that nobody can tell me what to do. In essence, if they're all 2-year-olds, throwing temper.
Unfortunately, they look to their leader Donald Trump for that kind of denial and that kind of fake rebellion. That's been very damaging. Trump said COVID would go away November 4th. 100,000 cases November 4th. Yeah. The Republicans don't seem to care about the arts either. But you know what? I actually think we're all going to flourish when we're through this. New York is going through drastic changes. Mm-hmm. It's not over by any means. It's just re-evolving. And I think we're going to come back with incredible theater and nightlife and cabaret performance and youthful energy. I can feel it in the air. It's about to take over the city and make it great again. Let's not forget that Giuliani in the 90s took all the gloss, or took the edge out of New York and made it all gloss and Disney. Remember?
It's so funny because I came to New York in 1979, and I've always said that I miss that edginess that New York had, because New York wasn't like any other place that I'd been. I left South Carolina to come to New York, so I wanted something that was a little edgier than what I had before. Lori, I want to go back to you for a moment because Dr. Bloom said something earlier with your business being a very hands-on business. And of course, that's a phrase that we're not able to use these days. How, have you adjusted a lot? I mean, you've mentioned that you're able to look at someone and know, based on your history, what their needs are. How are you able to translate that through the cyber world?
I don't see a difference. The only thing is that there's no touching, Mm-hmm. Usually I send them a package. They'll try on the bras for me, and I'll walk them through how it should fit and where things should be and how tight to make the straps and where to set the hooks. Mm-hmm. Normally when somebody comes to my shop, They know that they're going to be touched. And, you know, over 40 years, I'm really very blessed that there's something in what I do that makes people at ease and comfortable. I mean, it takes a lot for somebody to get literally naked with somebody else, somebody that they don't know. And then they hug me when it's over and say, "You've changed my life," you know? And for me, doing that hands-on or virtually, that's the juice for me, is making a difference in somebody's life.
So you'll have a woman just stand naked in like in a Zoom call or something, or on FaceTime?
It'll just be, we'll meet, she's wearing clothes, and I get a sense
We're
of
talking about remotely. Trying to do it remotely.
Yeah, we do it on Zoom. So she'll be wearing a t-shirt. I ask them to wear a snug t-shirt if they're shy about taking off their top. But nobody has refused to take off their top. They're all wearing best fitting bra. And within less than 50 seconds, I would say, I know what size they are. It's just a peculiar gift. You know, I should on the street corner and collect quarters and tell people, you know, your bra size. And people are very grateful because they walk around. Nobody's ever taught them. Their mothers don't know. So, you know, frequently for us, it starts with a bride coming in for undergarments for her dress. Like, oh my God, what do you mean? I'm a 32F. I've been wearing 4B all these years. And then,
do you think it's also a form of vanity with a lot of people that they are not honest with their body type and everything? And
I see some of that. You know, most of what I see is that women just have low self-esteem. You know, they don't think they're worth investing in a good bra for themselves. And we have a heart-to-heart in the fitting room. You know, you are your best investment, and invest the best that you can afford in yourself. You know, and it's like but when they see how they look, they come in and they're schleppy, but when they leave, they're happy. And I get notes from people saying, "You changed my life," and that's no small thing.
No, that's very gratifying.
Yeah,
very gratifying.
And with you, Tim, with the beginning of COVID, and let's go back. What did your schedule look like on November 12th? Prior to this happening, because I know that especially as we get closer to June, with it being Pride Month in New York and everything, and I know because of your activism and everything that you are incredibly busy at that time. I see your postings and everything, and and there are days where you do 4 events in one day.
Yeah,
you were doing it long before Trump was doing it.
That's true. But just real quick, Lori, I just have to say that with all the weight that I put on during this whole COVID thing, I'm a solid B cup, I guarantee But yes, you are right. My schedule that was one of the things with this whole experience that really kind of freaked me out, is because I didn't clear my schedule. I have hosted, or at least performed at Bronx Pride, Brooklyn Pride, Queens Pride, Staten Island Pride, New York City Pride. And this year I didn't clear my calendar, and the notifications kept popping up, and it was like that motorcycle outside. But these notifications would come up that would be like, oh my God, I was supposed to have hosted one of the stages at Brooklyn Pride today. And then the next day was, I would have taken my luggage with me to that performance, because the next day I had to go, or I was in Philly. I had Philadelphia Pride. And then another weekend I was supposed to be in Chicago Pride. And I just kept getting these reminders constantly. You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be there. You're supposed to be. And I'm sitting right here where I'm sitting right now. It was very, very frustrating. Yeah. And we had just finished shooting a reality television show and then shortly after that, we went into lockdown. And I had, oddly enough, I had cleared my schedule from March until the 1st of June, until Pride Month, because I had 4 major productions that were going to happen out of the city. And the one that was in the city, it was going to be my first time hosting, performing, and co-producing a show at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, wow.
And that was going to financially pretty much cover me for the rest of the year. That and the other 3 major ones I had scheduled all canceled.
Mm.
And that was so heartbreaking. But it was understandable, but you could just see it coming and coming and coming, and then closed.
Tim actually read the memo wrong. It was Carnegie Deli.
That's one way of looking at it.
Makes it even more heartbreaking. Even more heartbreaking.
Oh, that is heartbreaking. Carnegie Deli isn't around anymore, are they?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing too, is just watching all of these institutions or these restaurants that I've went to for decades that are all one by one, or the nightclubs that are just one by one closing. There's just no way they're going to be able to make it out of this. So sad.
But new ones will sprout.
Yes,
know?
absolutely.
Absolutely. And Michael, I agree with you. This is Broadway and off Broadway and theater is just going to come dance. It's all going to come roaring back because people are starving.
Yes.
Starving for it.
And this might be making lemonade, but I mean, the rents are going to finally go down.
Right. Going down.
If someone wants to open a dance club, which we have not really had very many in Manhattan quite some time, for the aftermath of Giuliani and Bloomberg, I don't think a community board is going to say don't open it, because they're going to welcome anyone who wants to take over the real estate. There's so much empty real estate.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of the businesses that used to inhabit the Midtown area are all discovering they might not need to be paying those prices for those office spaces now. A lot of the people can work from home remotely.
Yeah.
So it's a whole shift going on.
That's certainly happening in Los Angeles. I just left, and there are so many empty storefronts and office buildings, and I really wonder what's going to happen to all of those. I don't know how to. I think a lot of businesses are going to do a permanent shift to primarily remote work. So.
Well, I've also often said that, I think of this time as a pause for all of us to have a greater appreciation for those things that we did have. But Michael, I don't know if you're originally from New York. Are you originally from New York, Michael?
Yes, I was born in Manhattan, grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and then went to Columbia. I really have never left New York my entire life. I can't drive.
Well,
I'm allergic to the sun.
But I again came in 1979, 41 years I've been in this city, and places that I loved over the years have disappeared long before the pandemic even hit, for rising rent cost and everything else. I think that also with all of these things that we don't have in our lives right now, that just the fact that these places that were part of our existence in this city disappearing are triggers, and they trigger a sense of loss, for all of us. Those memories that we have in those places and those things. Dr. Bloom, you can address this better than I can, but I really do think that is another layer that so many of us are experiencing right now.
Absolutely. There is grief. It's a grief reaction. And initially, I think it really hit people. And, the stages of grief: denial, this is not happening, right? Anger at the government, anger at, reality, right? Anger at God, whatever, right? Bargaining, all the if onlys, if only we could do this, and if only we had done that, and if onlys. The sadness, the depression, and we've seen a huge increase in depression. Anxiety and depressive disorders are through the roof. And then finally acceptance, that is our reality right now, and we just have to deal with reality and realize it's not going to be forever, because it's not. Things change, they always do. So but I think that sense of loss is still very present with people, and that's really fueled by all the political uncertainty as well, and just that sense that things. I think that's a lot of what Trump's appeal is to his supporters. Is a lot of those people really see him as emblematic of the good old days or something, because they are feeling that sense of loss. it may be misplaced, but that's sort of what, what it brings out.
Mhm.
But I've seen so many aging hipsters in New York from my old crew spending literally the last 20 to 25 years complaining about how New York lost its edge. And what are they saying now? Oh, the streets are too raunchy.
Right.
Wake up. The edge is back. Remember you were complaining?
1979.
Enjoy. This is what you wanted. The edge was never all paradise. There was a little danger attached to it. It wasn't all pretty. That's why I call it edge.
Absolutely.
Well, I do want to talk.
I lived in Manhattan in the 70s, so I know.
Yeah.
But I do want to address each of you with, going to the title of our show, Creativity in the Age of COVID. Michael, do you find that you have the discipline? I don't know what your process is when you are writing. You've got several books. I've got some of them on my shelf. But when you are writing, do you have a certain discipline in your life doing that? Or do you just sit down and write when you get a spark of inspiration?
I haven't lasted this long, which is like 650 years or something, without being extremely disciplined. I'm not afraid of deadlines. If anyone is afraid of deadlines, I say don't go into journalism. It's the wrong profession. I get an assignment, I put my mind to it, I sit down, and it comes out. I've never missed a deadline. So it's not as easy nowadays. As you mentioned earlier, Richard, gossip is a lost art. Celebrities now serve their own gossip. You go on Twitter, they're having breakdowns in public. In addition to
could you elaborate? Because you're
Donald Trump is not a leader. He's gossip. He's a reality show star. Everything he says and does is covered by the cable channels that used to cover celebrities. Now it's much more interesting for them to cover, what outrageous thing Donald Trump just said. So I'm not doing so much gossip anymore, though I do a monthly column for Queerty.com, a gay site. But I'm doing more think pieces and socio-political cultural observations.
But it also, we also came from a time, even when I came to New York, that there were no cable television stations. We didn't have, constant bombardment of news 24/7. And then when 9/11 happened, I saw a shift happen with not only were you seeing the images in real time, but they were repeating those images over and over and over again until enough people complained and they took them off the air. But in addition to watching the news, you were seeing a split screen of two different news stories going on at the same time. And then in addition to that, as you see here, you had a scroll at the bottom of the screen with another news story that was going on. Your thoughts on that, Dr. Bloom, with, especially nowadays with people being secluded or sequestered in their homes and not getting out of the house.
And bombarded with a lot of false information as well. Like the whole QAnon thing that's taken off is a really good example of that, where people, it's confirmation bias. People get hit with something, it seems to be true to them, and then they look for evidence that this is true, right? And that's all they accept as true, is evidence of what they already believe. It's why it's sort of pointless to argue with a lot of people, like on Facebook or something. It really is pointless.
Now, with your business, did you have a 9-to-5 existence with your business? Or what was a typical day like for you prior to the pandemic? And how have you been able to adjust with the change with that?
Are you asking me or are you asking Michael?
Lori.
My life was never 9 to 5. My staff would come in sometimes at 9, and sometimes during the busy season when tech is happening on Broadway, we'd be there till 9 o'clock, 7 days a week. Right now, when we're not in the shop, my customers leave messages and we communicate by text and email. They tell me what they need. I check the inventory. I have an app that connects to my shop so I can let them know if we have it. And then we make arrangements to meet at the shop so that I can help them or pack something up and ship it if they need them. But my life was never 9 to 5. In the first 10 years of my business, I worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Because Broadway, it's like, the understudy is on tonight and we need underwear, or we're doing a photo at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning for GQ, and I need some G strings. So when I lived in Brooklyn at the time, get into my car and come into the city at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning to help somebody out. So, I stopped wearing a watch 10 years ago. Everywhere I have to go, I'm on time. Everything I need to do gets done. But it's not a 9-to-5 world anymore, especially, people working at night. My dad was a truck driver. He worked at night, and his mother worked for social services, and she worked at night. Yeah, do what I have to do. And some things I do when I feel like doing them. And if I don't feel like doing them, and if I don't have to, I don't.
Wow. And Tim, what about you? Is there a structure to your daily routine?
Sleep till I wake, which I enjoy. It's changed a lot. I mean, it really depends on what my schedule is. And I was just thinking about this a couple days ago. Was my roommate had said, she goes, "Oh, what did you do today?" And I was like, "Oh, I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this," but I didn't leave this room. So it didn't feel like I really did a lot. But she goes, "Wow, you really did a lot today." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I did." And because I'm used to, like Michael, I'm used to going over to this club and then run over here for a rehearsal and then go to an audition over downtown and then cross town because I'm meeting friends for dinner. And then, I was used to just being out on the run all the time. So my days are all different, but they're all confined to this space pretty much. And so it just doesn't seem like I'm accomplishing as much because I'm not physically as active or running around town like I did. But yet I am, if I stop and think about it, I'm like, yeah, I did do quite a lot today. So it's did that answer your question? I forgot what the question was.
Yeah, you did answer it, yes. But Michael, what about yourself? Have you been able to incorporate your lifestyle pretty much into this new way of living?
We found that human beings are very adaptable. If you want to survive and stay healthy, you adapt to the new challenges. No, my life is not what it was. Newsflash, it's markedly different, but I want to stay alive. Call me crazy. So I have adapted. It makes for downtime. It makes for a lot more watching movies I've already seen 20 times. I'm pitching work all the time. You're not getting the responses that you used to because there's not the work out there. But I'm doing freelance here and there in order to stay connected, stay doing what I do, and to keep my work out there. And if I meet with friends and we're sitting 6 feet away with masks on and we're sitting outside freezing at a restaurant, that's a big night out. And I appreciate it because I'm just grateful to be still kicking. I'm like Minelli.
But another thing, Michael, is that so many of the publications now have shifted online.
Yes.
And
I haven't been in a print publication in quite some time. It's really all become about online, and that we made that shift a while ago. So I'm used to doing that. I had lost my job at New Now Next, which for over 2 years I was doing a weekly column. I now do this monthly column at Queer Tea. I'm doing freelance here and there. I'm even doing some editing. And it's just fun to keep in the game, as you know. You want to do what you do. It's like Cassie from the chorus line. I'm a dancer. A dancer dances.
With your column that you're writing now, are you surfing through the internet to get a lot of your sources, or do you get leads, or how has that changed in your life?
It hasn't changed that much in that I get exclusive information. It's easier to get that now because of the internet. Like Dr. Judi said, the internet has provided, and all the media have provided, instant information. Also, it provides the misinformation, so you have to be very careful about your sources. But I knew that from day one. You have to examine your sources. What's their angle? What's their motivation? Who's credible and who isn't? I'm very alarmed by the misinformation that's going out there from QAnon and from Donald Trump, whose tweets lately have been flagged as disinformation. After 4 years, they just realized it's a problem. Shouldn't they have deleted him from Twitter 4 years ago? I would say so.
Well, the fact of the matter is, forgive me for going here, Dr. Bloom. But perhaps you want to address that issue. I mean, the constant tweets that he has done, not only from the fact that he's putting that information out there, but from a psychological point of view of what that is doing to his psyche.
We are not allowed to diagnose people remotely. You know, we haven't actually talked to.
Mm-hmm.
We can diagnose them remotely when we're doing therapy with them. But certainly, you know, there are very classic narcissistic personality disorder symptoms that are exhibited on a daily basis by Trump. And that narcissism, you know, has a perfect outlet in Twitter, because you can, you know, get constant reinforcement that what you are saying is being, you know, applauded and accepted, and that, you know, you are as great as you think you are, okay, as you're convinced that you are. You know, the classic narcissistic personality, I generally frame it as, you know, there's really only one way to do anything my way, and I'm only telling you for your own good, because there's only one way to do things my way. That's sort of, you know, the frame that the narcissist operates from.
Well, I applaud you for having the ethical fortitude not to diagnose someone that's not here, because a lot of people haven't put that barrier there.
Right.
I want to ask each of you, and I'll start with you, Lori, with this new way of life that we're in right now. What measures have you put into place for getting your name out there and letting people know about the work that you can offer to them?
I have an intern working with me, getting her credits from FIT, and we're developing a social media strategy. You know, I'm from the last century. This stuff is new to me, and I'm not good at it, and it's not what I like to do. So she's been very helpful with helping me navigate Instagram and Facebook. We've been advertising on Facebook. We're doing email, but we got a loyalty and email program, so we're letting our past customers know that, hey, we're still here. You know, word of mouth, walking around the neighborhood, handing out business cards, asking friends to recommend and tag us in photos. Have a very diverse circle of people, many diverse circles of people, you know. So ask everybody, just, you know, support your local small business, you know. Yep.
And with Lori, everyone, the operative word is support. Tim, how are you getting your name out there? I pretty much know because I follow you, and you utilize many platforms.
Yeah, it's all social media. I don't necessarily like it or enjoy it, but it's just part of the job. It's something that we have to do. And now under these circumstances, we're left with no other choice. And in the entertainment industry, it's very important to keep your name out there, your face out there, and your talent out there. And so I've again, just promote upcoming performances or anything that I'm in. And but I was kind of doing that before anyway, you know, so it's kind of an extension of that, I guess. Yeah.
And Michael?
I do pitch myself, and I do put myself on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, but I actually feel after a lifetime of pushing, you know, and striving, it's kind of nice now to pull back and say that's not what's important right now. I almost feel silly putting on Facebook, here's a picture of me with Grace Jones from the Palladium nightclub, because it just seems so trivial, even though we have to, you know, life has to go on. We have to care about the things we always cared about. But just the self-promotion and the narcissism right now seems really not cool. I can't help it, that's who I am, but I'm trying to curb it, to redefine my values. And when I put something on Facebook or Twitter, it's usually something political. It's not just me, or here's a picture of me with somebody. This is an important political point, and I'll often use satire to get it across.
Well, we're all at this point, especially now more than ever, where it is very difficult for us to separate our political selves from our artistic selves. We put that artistic self out to the world. And now, because so much is at stake, especially for those of us in the arts, that we are, utilizing these tools to also do that. And it sometimes is a plus and sometimes it's a detriment. I think that it is creating, the divide is getting wider and wider and wider. And I think that the elections this week prove that. Dr. Bloom, do you want to weigh in on those thoughts?
Well, I agree with you. I think that the divide is huge, and it was very. I actually, what I heard from a lot of people this week is how profoundly sad they are at how many people in this country are apparently okay with racism and discrimination of all different kinds, and that's okay with them, and they operate, again, it's from their very narrow self-interest. So it's very much one issue, whatever their issue is. So whether their issue is abortion, or their issue is the economy, or whatever their one issue is, that's all they care about. And they're willing to accept everything else as just sort of collateral damage. And that, people have been really, really upset about, because it's become very evident that there is a huge segment of the population across the country that operates from that kind of a frame.
Well, I can honestly say that as a man who's going to be approaching 60 in a couple of months, that for the first time in my life, I find at no other point in my life do I recall people being as political as they are at this point in their lives. And for many people, it defines who they are. It's every post that they put on Facebook. It's the message that they are putting out there 24/7. And you know nothing else about them except where they stand politically.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things with social media, right? It's become that conduit for people to instantly proclaim, this is who I am, and and rant and rave about whatever their political stance is. I do remember a time when we were just as political, though. Back during the Vietnam War. So it's it's not new in that sense.
But we didn't have social media then.
That's a huge difference. It is.
Yeah.
And the news has really shifted. I mean, I don't know that the rest of you know this, but I was a television news anchor and reporter for many years. And the news today is a very different news.
Yeah.
We did news. We didn't do opinion. We did news.
Well, before we wrap this up, I do want to ask you, because you do come from that world, with the political climate that we're in now, do you miss the fact that you're not in that world?
Yes and no. It would be nice to be able to be out there reporting and trying to make a difference in that way, in terms of being really rigorous about facts. But there's also a lot about what exists today and is called news that I certainly don't miss being a part of. And my daughter is currently, I think you know that, Richard.
Yes. We'll say hello to Heather for me. Yeah. Well, I can't believe this, but we are at the end of our show. So I want to thank everyone who tuned in today. Creativity in the Age of COVID with Dr. Judi Bloom and myself. And we will be back. We do this every other Thursday. And we will be back on the 19th doing this again. If you have ideas or suggestions for the show, feel free to reach out to me either through Facebook, Twitter, other social media platforms, or my email address is richard@richardskipper.com. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, reach out to your 5th friend that pops up today, and just give them a call. Not an email, not a text, a phone call, and ask how they're doing, really, in the midst of all this time. Because as my dear friend David Friedman says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And before we end the show, I like to leave everybody with a chance to put their message out to everyone. It could be on what we talked about today. It could be something we haven't talked about today, or it's just a message that you want to impart to everyone. And I will start with you, Lori, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. And since I was 8 years old, the only thing I wanted was to save the world. So look at the things that we have in common, and the things that make us unique and special are things to be appreciated and valued, because if the world was all vanilla, it would be boring.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Tim? And thank you for being here today.
Well, I think if everybody would take a step back, I think we would realize that we have much, much more in common with each other than we do differences. But we like micro focus on those differences. And so try to lighten up, loosen up. We're the United States of America, not the divided states of America. So we're in it together. Let's start acting like it. Let's start acting like
President Tim. Thank you. Michael, thank you. And it's always good to see you, Michael. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. My message is always to create. As a young kid and a pre-adolescent, I learned right away that writing, even just writing on index cards for myself, was a great form of expression. It was liberating. It was cathartic. Write, people. Dance, direct, act, do something creative. It will elevate your mood. You might, step into some magical new career, and nothing bad's going to come out of it.
And Dr. Bloom, I know you've got unpacking to do. But before you go off to do that, I'm going to give you the final word.
Gratitude and appreciation for what you do have in your lives. And I think that's the most important thing for all of us right now, is to really focus on that and do it verbally every day. Say 10 things that you're grateful for. It really will shift your mood tremendously.
And this is National Gratitude Month, leading up to Thanksgiving. So thank you all, and have a wonderful November. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a better tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Mwah.